We're live. Countdown. Hello, I'm Willie Bragg. Welcome to another edition of the Willie Bragg Show, where I like to discuss a lot of politics. And today, we're going to go and kind of walk away momentarily from things like the being on the cusp of World War III with this situation between Russia and the Ukraine. And we're going to go into culture, war, politics, with just a weird twist to things. But before I go about it, you remember Dave Rubin, right? You know, the guy that used to be with the Young Turks, young progressive guy, gay guy, progressive, and he decided that he was no longer part of the left, and he kind of went into a more conservative direction down the road. And a lot of his colleagues at that time, former colleagues, they were kind of shitting on them and everything like that. And just sometimes it was funny, sometimes they're just like you're trying to hurt people's feelings too, and all of that. But I mean, I have done my fair share of Dave Rubin bashing too. I mean, my gosh, he said some really stupid things over the years. I mean, one time he said that he chose Gary Johnson between Hillary Clinton and Donald, and that I can respect. But then later on, he said if it would have been a choice between Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump, he would have chosen Donald Trump. So that basically meant that he's more pro Hillary Clinton than Bernie Sanders. And if he's going to choose Bernie Sanders over Donald Trump, what can you say? And it's not that I even defend Bernie Sanders that much anymore. I mean, it's just, just how everything is perception in politics. But anyway, I'll let you hear it from the horse's mouth first, and I will share a few words momentarily. Okay, here we go.
All right, so here's the really big announcement, and this is the personal one and the life-changing one and the whole thing, and I know that a lot of you have been asking me about this, and, when I wrote the original book, Don't Burn This Book, which at this point came out 2 years ago, which is crazy, so I really wrote it 3 years ago, and even a year before that, 4 years ago, was when David and I really started talking about expanding our family. It's something that we've been thinking about, weighing the pros and cons. What are we going to do? I've sort of, for the first 40 years of my life, I kind of just didn't think I would have kids, or I could just do whatever I wanted, or something like that. It just wasn't really something that I really thought about that much. And in a weird way, I guess the gay thing kind of gives you like an easy out on that, because I'm not a scientist, but it's hard for two biological men or two biological women to actually reproduce without some help. So it was sort of felt like an easy off-ramp or something like that. But David, we've been together for like 13 years at this point, which in straight years is like 40 years. That's how the conversion rate works on that thing. We got married in the summer of 2015, so we've been married about 7 years, but we've been together about 13 years overall. And he's a little bit younger than me, so he grew up in a time when it was just obvious that, you could be gay and have a family and be somewhat normal. I don't like that word normal, but like you could have something normal. And something conventional, as boring as that may sound to some degree. Where I grew up, when I grew up, it was like there was nobody talking about any of this stuff. Like there was no like, those are two dads, or those are two moms, and that's a family, or something like that. I didn't know anyone like that. I just never thought about it. And also I put so much into my career that, for better or worse, I think it obviously helped me accomplish a lot in some ways. But I was so focused and driven that it's a miracle in some ways that I found someone to marry, but it's also kind of a miracle that now we can move on to this next phase. So yes, we are expanding the family, but I have a belief that when you do things, you don't just go, you go big. So 2 babies, people, 2 babies are on the way. Those are ultrasounds, what you're seeing over there. Yeah. So, okay, this is going to be very confusing to people, and I understand this, right? Like, okay, wait a minute, you're both dudes. You're showing me two ultrasounds. They don't look exactly the same. What's going on there? Are they twins? Are they something else? We pull those images up again. One of them seems lighter than the other. What is there a coloration problem? What's going on here? Is this racial? I get it. There's a lot of questions related to all of this. So let me just back up a little bit and tell you about our sort of fertility journey. So when you have two men or two women, you're missing a piece, right? You got the sperm or you got the egg, but you don't have a sperm and an egg, right? You don't have a womb. You got to figure out some things here. And by the way.
Okay, enough of that. Basically, in his husband, David Janet, are going to go in and adopt one or maybe two kids, it sounds like. And all political differences aside, because he pisses me off politically, because he's a very disingenuous person, and I have my criticisms of Dave Rubin. But I will say this about Dave Rubin on a human-to-human level. Congratulations. I'm glad you and David Janet are married, and I hope that y'all have a very long, enriching life. And I hope that the kids you adopt is going to bring you both happiness, bring them happiness. And even though I don't know either one of you, and I am mad at you, Dave Rubin, on a political level, I support what you and David are going to do, and I hope everything works out. So there's that. Still think you're a political scum for what you did to the left, but I wish you and your husband and your family, your expanding family, all the happiness in the world otherwise. So there is also that. And think about it is, there are people, the conservative movement seems to be kind of divided on Dave Rubin and he and his husband adopting some kids. And I said divided because there's been progress. There has been progress over the years. I mean, for example, and I'm not surprised, but Megyn Kelly, for example, is hold on. Yeah, Megyn Kelly, for example, is supportive and congratulations to Dave Rubin. And that is there's been progress being made when it comes to the LGBTQ freedom and equality, and they're okay with the LGBTQ community. It first started out in the libertarian movement mostly, but most garden variety Republicans out there are starting to accept it. And it comes down to this: you have people in your family or people at your workplace or whatever setting, and you realize they're human beings and they just happen to love somebody from another gender, and they're good people regardless. I mean, and you, when you realize that, you realize, hey, if my son is happy, or if my daughter is happy, or if my uncle is happy, you wish them all the best in the world. You wish them, give them all your love and support and everything. And so that's what it comes down to human level. And there's been improvement being made over the years. Even Nancy Reagan has improved on that. Before she died, she ended up saying she supported same-sex marriage. Now, one could say there's a reason for that. And it comes down to this. I mean, being a wealthy woman, she probably, and I'm going to be very, very stereotype and generalize a little bit, but when it comes to like wealthy conservative white women who have good relationship with their interior decorator, so to speak, or someone like that, or their hairdresser, or what have you. I think that's what happened with a lot of conservative white women who end up being a very affirming. I don't care how they get there. The fact that they end up being affirming, is where the positive direction goes. I mean, and so there's been senators and congressmen who's been homophobic over the years, and then they find out somebody in their family is gay or lesbian or what have you, and they end up rethinking about their positions, and then they end up being very affirming. The only nice thing I have to say about Dick Cheney is he offered his daughter his love. So that's pretty much what I wanted to say about that. So we'll put it this way. Give me a moment here. The Blaze, if you're not familiar with The Blaze is a program, a conservative network of sorts. And it's basically Glenn Beck, Mark Levin, and some of these other folks, pretty much kind of obnoxious people on that network. Well, Glenn Beck is a curious person. He's a curious one because of all the talk show hosts, and I don't agree with Glenn Beck hardly on anything, but sometimes he will say things that will surprise you, that will be not a party line conservative knee-jerk talking point. And but then sometimes he returns to being a jerk. So it just it's sort of like he's sort of like every other day. And over the years, Glenn Beck started off being like, basically, hostily anti-gay. And then he started saying, well, maybe, civil unions. But I tell you what, I'm gonna play you the video of, well, I'm not gonna play the video, I'm gonna play you audio. I have a reason for doing audio for this one. Of Dave Rubin and Glenn Beck having a discussion about Dave Rubin adopting. So hold tight.
I get why the right has these, what I would argue are often legitimate fears, because the left does not stop eating civilization.
Correct.
And think about what an unfortunate position that puts us in, because then someone like me can make an announcement like this, then good, decent, thoughtful conservatives, some of faith, maybe some not of faith, whatever it is, could reach out and say, boy, this is what an interesting opportunity, and sure, it's a little different, and whatever, all the love that you and the Blaze guys and everyone else are giving me. And then there's this other part that's legit, which is, if we move the line, they're going to keep going. And I don't know what the answer to that is. Dave. I honestly don't, because that has nothing to do with me. And now I'm going to live my life.
I think, and this is why I wanted to have you on, because I don't have an answer. I am, you know me, I'm a deeply religious man, and my religion says man and a woman, that is the basic building block of family. We're probably the clearest church on this, because it's been in our doctrine for 200 years. So we're very clear on that. But that's marriage and relationships, and that's what I believe. But I also know God created you just like he created me, flaws and all. I believe I have a gene, they've never found it, that makes me very susceptible to alcoholism because it runs in my family. So does craziness, but it runs in my family. The same thing with things that I don't understand. And if we can't have a conversation about things that we don't necessarily understand, and probably won't until we get to the other side, we have to just work it out together and be able to say, Dave, I disagree, or I don't know what the answer is, but I love you.
Okay. Let's see here. Give me a moment. There we go. Okay. Well, let me say this. One, Glenn Beck. I'm going to say, I don't know Glenn Beck personally, and I doubt that he's a deeply devout Mormon. I know he was Roman Catholic and converted to Mormonism. And that's fine. I know that he tries to brand himself as a libertarian. Pretty much Dave Rubin brands himself as a libertarian too. And the thing about it is that if you're a libertarian, you're supposed to be for LGBTQ rights. Now, you can be critical of LGBTQ from a religious standpoint and still be for equality for the LGBTQ at the same time. Human rights. People make choices. We have freedom of religion in this country, and we're all equal under the law, regardless of what church you go to or whatever you go to worship, no matter what color you are, and no matter who you sleep with. Everybody's equal. And the thing about it is, I know Mormons who are pro-LGBTQ. And we're talking about straight people who consider themselves allies. Even as the governor of Massachusetts, Mitt Romney, and I have a problem with Mitt Romney saying that Tulsi Gabbard should be arrested for treason. As a relatively liberal Republican in Massachusetts back in, what was it, the 1980s, 1990s, he was he was relatively progressive on that issue, from what I understand. Now, Glenn Beck talked about civil unions at one time, and and some conservatives started warming up to the idea of civil unions, and then all of a sudden he realizes he has that large chunk of the audience who are very socially conservative, most of them very likely evangelical Christians, is part of what the audience would be from talk radio, even from very secular conservative talk show hosts like Rush Limbaugh or Sean Hannity or the late Rush Limbaugh rather, and Sean Hannity or Mark Levin or what have you. And they know they got to placate toward the "I hate the gays" crowd. That's a given. And and Glenn Beck, I believe that he doesn't have a problem with the LGBTQ community, but I believe he's got that audience he needs to hold on to. And here is a chance. I would have been more impressed if Glenn Beck would have been like, Dave, I may not, I may have some religious, questions about it, but you got my support anyway, 100%. I would have respected Glenn Beck if he would have at least done that part, but he, with not caring about how his audience is going to react. But the fact that he was scared that he was going to lose his audience, because he lost a big chunk of his audience in 2016 when he was a never Trumper, and that's why he's like pardon the expression, referring to this discussion about Dave Rubin. This is why the Glenn Beck is basically a pro Donald Trump cocksucker these days, is because he doesn't want to lose any more of that audience. But I would have been more impressed if he would have said, fuck this audience. I'm going to do what's right. I would have respected him a hell of a lot more than him going on The View, saying that he's a good conservative on The View back in 2016 when he was a never Trumper. That's basically what I'm need to address. But another thing about it is poor old Dave Rubin. I almost feel sorry for the man because, he's a grifter. He doesn't really stand for anything. I don't even believe he believes the right wing crap that spews out of his mouth on the program. I don't believe that for a second. He's a grifter. But the thing is that while he's a grifter, he is a human being. And I know that there are times I've seen it where basically he was trying to be friendly with Ben Shapiro, and Ben Shapiro basically in a very diplomatic way said that Dave Rubin is a quote unquote, I'm paraphrasing Ben Shapiro, icky, creepy, yucky, a degenerate, gross, that sort of thing. He basically insulted Dave Rubin on the show without actually insulting him. Same thing with people like Steven Crowder, what have you. Now, I think that I think that Dennis Prager probably had he probably is socially conservative, but he was, he's probably the least asshole of people who were like really crapping on him about this sort of thing. But damn, Dave, do you really think that a lot of these right wingers, not all of them, there are right wingers who are cool with the gays, but do you think for a second that you're going to turn 90% of them into pro LGBTQ? You think you're going to turn them into libertarians overnight? You're really mistaken. Most Republicans identify more on the question of LGBTQ with Marjorie Taylor Greene than they do with Dave Rubin. It's probably the majority. If there is an absolute majority, the absolute majority would be in the middle of Dave Rubin and Marjorie Taylor Greene. But most of them are still going to lean more toward the Marjorie Taylor Greene view of LGBTQ and be very toxic and be very much an asshole about it. And just never forget that. And never forget, Dave Rubin needs to never forget this. I agree with Dave Rubin about maybe some aspects of the liberal left being overly woke. But it doesn't mean that you have to go give up everything you ever believed in. If he's sincere, that's what happened. Doesn't mean you have to give up everything you believe in and believe in all the Kool-Aid shit that comes out of Fox News and the Heritage Foundation and what Kyle Kalinske called as movement conservatism. You don't have to do that. I mean, if Dave Rubin would have just said, well, the liberal left is, their rhetoric is toxic, I think that I'm going to be a libertarian. You're not in enemy territory with the Libertarian Party. Even if some libertarians are individually homophobic, they have this high-minded attitude about liberty that they're going to go overlook that. But you're not going to get that in conventional movement conservative establishment Republican politics. You really are not. They're going to think more like Pat Robertson than they're going to think like Dave Rubin or Blair White, for example. So that's basically what I wanted to say. So let's see here. I see something on the chat line that looks like spam, so I'm not going to worry about that. But let's see. Joey Bowie says here, there's a lot of money in bigotry, and I am afraid you're right. That's why people grift. There's a lot of people that will grift. Not Dave Rubin. I mean, Tim Pool is a grifter. Who else is a grifter? Candace Owens. I heard she started off as some kind of SJW, but I'm not sure about that. But needless to say, they do run amok out there. So anyway, if you like what you heard, press like and comment. If you disagree, we'll comment anyway. We'll have a conversation. Feel free to share the content on this channel. Um, as a First Amendment absolutist, it's my duty to inform you to create your own platform and utilize it because we're, in fact, the muckrakers of our time. And hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. And I need to kind of repeat this now lately because YouTube signal out independent content makers, political commentators, and especially if you're on the bread tube side of the equation. And so they shadow ban a lot of these channels. The bigger channels have been complaining about it, and I believe it's also being done to my channel as well. So I'm making a plea to each and every one of you. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do subscribe, and let's overcome this algorithm bullshit. Hit that like button. I understand hitting the like button helps with algorithms too. So I'm going to ask you to do that as well. So and until next time, remember, support LGBTQ rights. Remember this, that there is a class struggle. So let's go and wage the class war. And we're all Julian Assange. And I will end with saying, music.